If you want to pass really any invasive privacy law right now and just get no pushback from the public, all you have to do is just slap the phrase online safety on it and pretend it's exclusively about protecting kids. Like seriously, online safety has just become the ultimate political Trojan horse, you could say. And it's wild just watching people just fall for it over and over again. By the end of 2025, half of the US had suddenly mandated some sort of strict age verification just to access things like social media. And lawmakers, they heavily sold this to the public as a necessary step to keep the internet safe for the youth. But let's just be honest here, the reality is that it kind of forced massive tech companies to become full-time digital like bouncers. They're checking the IDs of every single person who wants to log on to their platforms. Like, it is the exact opposite of safety, because just think about it for a second. On the old internet, you just needed to enter your birth year on a simple drop-down menu, basically an honor system that just preserved your everyday privacy. Like, you just scroll online without the platform needing to know your exact government name. But now, in the modern era, underneath the guise of quote-unquote safety, well, states are now forcing everyday people to upload things like their driver's license, their passports, or even just actual live facial scanning. Just pure dystopian stuff. And the absolute craziest part is that digital privacy experts, they actively warn lawmakers that forcing users to hand over their sensitive online identity documents to just random third-party vendors, let's just be honest here, would just always backfire and create a massive honeypot of data for hackers. But instead of actually just listening to reasonable, out-of-touch politicians, they kind of just covered their ears, yelled about online safety 24/7, and just pushed restrictive laws through anyway, creating an absolute privacy nightmare that we are kind of suffering from in this day and age. So it did not take even that long for this exact nightmare scenario to start showing its true colors, which is easily the most frustrating part of this whole situation. Like, for example, in early 2026, we got a great example of what this means with Persona, which is a massive identity verification vendor used by giant platforms like Discord and OpenAI. At first, there was a massive panic because people thought it was actually a giant database hack, but the reality of what actually happened was just like so much more creepier than a standard data breach. So pretty much, renowned cybersecurity experts, including Fun Fact, the creator of I Have Been Pawned, a great website, where they confirmed that no actual user records or databases were leaked, which you might think is good. But instead, researchers essentially just poked around the open web and found that Persona had left their internal dashboard source code just publicly accessible to anyone. And that sounds bad, right? Being able to just see all their source code. But the truth is actually just a lot worse, because it kind of revealed that Persona had an extensive built-in watchlist screening pipeline. Like, this code pretty much proved that underlying infrastructure for your system is built to do just way more than check if you're a little kid. Like, it showed that these platforms have the active capability to run routine identity checks directly against government watchlists and also federal networks. Like, users, they use these platforms thinking they're just proving they're old enough to, I don't know, use an app. But the architecture is just fully equipped to scan their facial biometrics and device data against global law enforcement databases. It is a completely legitimate privacy concern that entirely destroys the core argument these systems are just simple, harmless age gates that are actually protecting people. These days, these modern age verification systems are just quite literally just massive surveillance pipelines wearing a really just terrible disguise, because there's simply no private way to legally verify someone's exact identity online. That's just impossible. And what makes this entire situation just more funny in a deeply depressing way, if you think about it, that these massive laws do not even actually work for a specific thing they aggressively claim to be doing. When these age verification laws first kicked in, well, honestly, tech-savvy kids, they didn't just magically just hop off using the internet. People immediately found ways to bypass them, like VPNs, for example, to bypass these regional blocks. It literally takes a high school kid, I don't know, 3 seconds to download a free VPN on their phone, change their location to somewhere else, and just bypass the little checkpoint that costs millions of dollars and poor taxpayer money to get online. But the entire online safety excuse just completely falls apart when you realize the laws are entirely ineffective of actually keeping kids off platforms. But they're perfectly effective at stripping away the basic privacy of everyday people and also spying on them while just trying to browse the web in peace. And instead of simply admitting that their grand, expensive plans just get outsmarted by kids, well, lawmakers are simply just aggressively doubling down on their surveillance plans. Now you have out-of-touch politicians in various states trying to introduce incredibly fancy word incoming draconian legislation, banning things like even proxy servers and also VPNs themselves. They're just so completely obsessed with just forcing everyone to scan their stuff. They're just willing to blindly criminalize basic privacy tools that I'm sure that millions of people, including I don't know, you maybe use every day to keep the internet connection secure from, I don't know, hackers or just whatever you want to do. Like, it is basically the equivalent of trying to outlaw, I don't know, cars because someone might use them to, I don't know, escape a robbery. That analogy kinda sucked, I'll be honest, but you get the point. Like, it is honestly insane to watch state governments attempt to outright ban standard cybersecurity software just because people are successfully dodging their broken age gates. Now, you would logically think that regulators at the federal level might step in and try and stop this unprecedented data collection schemes these days, but they're practically just cheering on the sidelines right now. So just recently, the FTC, they put out a game-changing policy statement that basically gave tech companies a total free pass to collect more of your sensitive data, all entirely in the name of good old age verification. Like, the FTC, they straight up just announced that they would not legally penalize websites if those sites collected personal information specifically for trying to verify someone's age. Like, it is basically the federal government actively incentivizing giant platforms to scan your face or collect your ID, while completely turning a blind eye to the actual risks of forcing everyone into a centralized global digital identity system. And because of this top-down pressure, well, you can easily assume that platforms are definitely racing to build these invasive verification systems globally just to avoid things like corporate lawsuits. And you really have to understand, this is not just a problem here in the United States. This exact same privacy erosion is happening all over the entire world right now. You probably know what's going on in the UK, but here's a more niche example. Like, look what happened in Brazil recently. So they basically enacted this massive digital statute that completely bans the old reliable practice of letting users simply just self-declare their age. Instead, Brazil is trying to force tech platforms to pretty much use highly audible digital ID checks and meaning that any user under 16 must have their digital account directly linked to a parent or a guardian. This means that companies are legally forced to build massive databases permanently connecting the verified legal identities of adults to kids. Like, they're quite literally encouraging the creation of highly vulnerable centralized databases and doing it all with a straight face. But we know damn well that stuff's gonna get a breach in 3 weeks. Let's just be honest here. At the end of the day, online safety is just, to be quite honest, no longer a genuine goal. It is simply a highly effective branding strategy used to completely dismantle the idea of online privacy. So for a long time, the internet, it thrived precisely because you could just use it and communicate with people without having your real world identity just tied to you. But now we're all watching an active real-time construction of a checkpoint system where trying to access a social media app just requires the same level of invasive security as I don't know, boarding an international flight. It doesn't matter if it's the US, the UK, Brazil, or the EU, they all got their own shenanigans going on regarding this topic. But for all of them, the end game is exactly the same. They're all happily trading the fundamental right to privacy for a completely illusionary, flawed sense of security that doesn't even actually work in the first place. The emotional narrative of, oh, just think of the children, it's kinda running out because normal people are finally realizing to the reality that these laws are just massive surveillance mandates, just wearing a really terrible disguise. Every single time you hear a politician just talk about how they want to make the internet safer for kids, we have to look at what they're actually talking about on the down low. So yeah, that's it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and next time an app wants you to scan your face, well, just remember that this is the plan.